I was behind the reception desk, doing the same small things I always did, straightening a stack of intake forms, aligning the pens so they looked neat, wiping a fingerprint off the glossy counter, when the phone started vibrating like angry insects. At first, it was just one. A buzz, a screen lighting up, then another, then three. A ripple through the waiting area like someone had opened a door and let cold air in. People looked down at their laps, at their hands, at the notification previews. Their faces changed in the same way, like a switch flipped. A tightness around the mouth, eyebrows lifting, eyes darting toward me, then away, then back. I felt it before I understood it, that invisible shift where you're no longer a person in the room, you're a subject. I'm Helena, 30, Brazilian. I came to this city in the U.S. with a suitcase that smelled like my mother's detergent and a degree nobody here cared about. I learned to speak English in full sentences, with careful rhythm, because I was tired of being treated like I was slow. At this clinic, my job title was Front Desk Administrative Coordinator, which sounded important on paper. In real life, it meant I was the first face people saw, the last voice they heard, and the easiest person to ignore. I was the one who remembered which kids hated the blood pressure cuff. I was the one who knew which parents would get lost in the hallway and which ones would cry if you asked them too many questions. I was the one who made the day run smoothly. So smoothly that no one noticed it was work. The lobby smelled like eucalyptus and expensive coffee. The clinic liked that smell. They liked everything that looked calm and controlled. That's why what happened next felt like a crack through glass. The director stepped out from behind the frosted doors like she'd been summoned by all the buzzing phones. Her heels clicked too fast, like she'd forgotten how to walk in a place meant to soothe. Dr. Monroe's wife came right behind her, Cassandra. Even if you didn't know her name, you knew her. Her hair always looked like it had been styled in a different room than the rest of us existed in. Her clothes were never wrinkled. Her smile never reached her eyes unless there was a camera. She was not staff, she was not medical. But she moved through the clinic like she owned the air. The director held her own phone up as if it were a weapon and pointed it toward me, then toward the waiting room, then back to me again. "Everyone," she said, and her voice was too loud for a place with children. "Please, give us a moment." No one moved. People only leaned in. Even the parents who had been distracting their kids with tablets stopped. A child tugged at his mother's sleeve, and she didn't look down. Cassandra's hand came to her chest like she'd been wounded. Her eyes glistened instantly, perfectly timed. The director tapped the screen. A voice filled the lobby. My voice, not an imitation that sounded like me if you squinted with your ears, not a vague similarity. It was my voice in a way that made my stomach drop, like hearing your name called when you're alone. The audio was clear, crisp, almost too clean. "I leaked everything," the voice said, and it had the exact cadence I used when I was tired. "I sold the patient list. I don't care if it destroys them. Let it burn." A couple of gasps. A woman covered her mouth. A man muttered, "Jesus." The director turned her phone so I could see it. The file was titled with my name, Elena Confession, MP4. My knees went soft. I stared at the director's screen like it might change if I stared hard enough. I could feel the blood leaving my face, the cold creeping up my arms. "That's—" I tried to speak, but my throat locked. "That's not—" Cassandra stepped forward before I could finish. "Oh my God," she said softly, like she couldn't believe the world could be so cruel. "We have children here." Her gaze flicked past me and landed on Alyssa. I knew Alyssa because she didn't fit the room. This clinic was high-end, private, the kind of place with a donor wall and a coffee bar, the kind of place where people said wellness like it was a luxury brand. Alyssa had the look of someone who'd been fighting for too long. Hair pulled into a messy knot because there was no time, not because it was a style. a sweatshirt that was clean but worn, eyes that scanned every adult like she was deciding who was safe. She was holding her son, Noah, close. Noah was 6, small for his age. His curls were always a little wild. He had a soft face that still belonged to a toddler, but his eyes were older than they should have been. Noah needed therapy here. The clinic offered a specialized pediatric program, the kind with long wait lists. Alyssa had begged, cried, filled out paperwork 3 times, waited for months. When a slot finally opened, she told me it felt like someone had thrown her a rope in the middle of the ocean. Now, in the middle of the lobby, Alyssa's arms tightened around Noah like she could keep him from drowning with her hands. She looked at me like I'd pushed her. Noah started to cry, not loud, but the kind of crying that makes your body shake. "I'm sorry," I whispered without meaning to. My mouth moved on instinct, like I could apologize the world back into place. "Alyssa, I swear." The director's eyes were sharp. "Helena," she said, and my name sounded like an accusation by itself. "Do you understand what this is? This is a breach. This is criminal." "It's not me," I said, and it came out in English, clean and clear. "That's my voice, but it's not me. I didn't do that." The room went still in the way it does when people decide they already know the ending. Cassandra's tears spilled over. She didn't wipe them right away. She let them fall so everyone could see. "This clinic has worked so hard," she said, voice trembling. "We have donor trust. We have families who depend on us. My husband, Dr. Monroe, he gives everything to these children. And now this." She turned to the director, and her softness sharpened into steel. "You have to act immediately," she said, "for the safety of the patients, for the children." "Ma'am," I said, "because old habits die hard, and you still call her ma'am even when she's aiming at you." "Please, I didn't leak anything. Please let me—" Cassandra lifted her hand like she was calming an animal. "I understand you're scared," she said, "but you can't expect us to risk the lives of children because you want to explain yourself." Risk the lives of children. The phrase hit like a slap. Noah's small sobs grew louder, and Alyssa's chin trembled like she was trying not to break in front of everyone. People shifted away from her slightly, like scandal was contagious. The director looked at me like she was looking at an infection. "Hand me your badge," she said. For a second I didn't move. My fingers were frozen on the edge of the counter. My badge, my access card, my whole life in a piece of plastic. "I need to call someone," I said. "HR or—" "Now," she repeated. "Badge, Helena." I unclipped it with hands that didn't feel like mine and placed it on the counter. It made a small sound, a tap. That tap felt louder than the audio. 2 security guards appeared as if they'd been waiting. This clinic had security not because it was dangerous, but because it was expensive. One of them was new. The other one I recognized, Ray. Ray was older, mid-50s. He worked nights and weekends, did IT and security, because the clinic had decided those could be the same person. He wore plain clothes and moved quietly, like he'd learned that making yourself small was survival in places built for big egos. His eyes met mine for a fraction of a second. He didn't look surprised. He looked careful. The director nodded at the guards. "Escort her to Conference B. No phone." "No phone?" I repeated, my voice cracking. "You can't—" "I can," she said, "and I am." A murmur rolled through the lobby. People were recording now, discreetly. The glow of screens, the slow tilt of phones. I saw Alyssa's phone in her hand, shaking. I saw the group chat previews flashing on the screens of donors' wives I'd checked in last week. Committee chat, donor chat. Friends of Pediatric Health. 1,000 tiny stages. I felt the humiliation like heat. As the guards moved toward me, Cassandra stepped closer, lowering her voice just enough to feel private. "If you have any decency," she said, "you'll admit what you did and not drag innocent people down with you." I stared at her. My mouth opened, then closed, because I realized something suddenly and sharply. Everyone wanted me to talk. Everyone wanted me to defend myself right now, right here, in front of the cameras and the crying child. They wanted the scene. They wanted the messy emotional plea so they could call it manipulation. And Cassandra wanted me to panic, so I swallowed my words. I let the guards guide me away from the desk, through the hallway where framed photos of smiling children lined the walls like proof of virtue. The clinic loved those photos. Donors loved those photos. I had always been proud to work in a place that helped kids. Now the same hallway felt like a tunnel. As we passed the door to the records room, I caught a glimpse of the keypad, the camera above it. My mind, which should have been collapsing, grabbed at details like a lifeline. Conference B was a small room with no windows and a table that was too big for it. It smelled like dry erase markers and tension. The guards took my phone. They didn't ask. They just held out a hand. When I hesitated, the director's voice floated from the hallway. "Do not make this harder," she said. I handed it over. The phone felt warm in my palm, like it had been alive. Then it was gone. The door closed. And for the first time since I'd walked into the clinic that morning, there was silence. Not peaceful silence, the kind that presses against your eardrums. I sat in the chair because my legs wouldn't hold me. I stared at the grain of the table like it could tell me how this happened. My voice, my face, my name. I knew enough about technology to know that deep fakes existed. Everyone did now. People joked about it. People posted videos on social media like it was a magic trick. But this wasn't a joke. This was a knife made of pixels. I thought of my mother back in Brazil, sending voice notes with prayers. I thought of the way my accent showed up in English only when I was tired or emotional. I thought of the little Portuguese phrases I slipped in when I was alone behind the desk. They had taken something intimate and turned it into a weapon. A knock came at the door. It opened, and two people walked in. The first was the director, still pale and stiff. The second was a man I didn't recognize. He didn't look like a doctor, no scrubs, no white coat. He wore a simple button-down shirt and dark pants, like someone trying to blend into a place full of uniforms. He carried himself like he didn't need to prove anything. His eyes moved around the room once, like he was taking inventory, then landed on me. Not with disgust, not with pity, with curiosity. "This is Helena," the director said, and my name sounded like a file label. "Helena Souza." The man nodded slightly. "Helena," he said, as if tasting the name. "I'm Graham. Just Graham, no title, no last name." Like he expected the world to adjust around that. The director remained standing. Graham sat across from me, folding his hands. "Do you know what you're being accused of?" he asked. "Yes," I said, and my voice shook despite my effort. "They think I sold patient information. They think I swallowed. "They think I said that." "Did you?" he asked calmly. "No," I said. "I didn't. I would never." The director snorted softly, as if the word never was naive. Graham didn't react. He just watched me. "I've listened to the audio," he said. "It's convincing." "It's not me," I repeated. Graham tilted his head. "How can you be so sure?" "Because it's my voice." I wanted to scream. "Because I know the shape of my own mouth. Because I know the words I would never say about children, but instead I forced myself to answer like a person who wanted to be believed. Because I didn't do those things," I said, "and because there are things in it that don't match me." The director crossed her arms. "Like what?" I closed my eyes and replayed the audio in my mind. The way the voice said, "I don't care." The way it said, "Let it burn." It sounded like me the way a wax figure looks like you, close enough to be horrifying. There's a pause before the word burn. I said slowly. A cut. And the breathing. It repeats. The director rolled her eyes. She's grasping. Graham lifted a hand slightly, not to silence her, but to hold the moment. Interesting, he said. You notice details. I have to, I said. My job is details. The director's mouth tightened. Her job was welcoming people, and apparently recording them. My stomach twisted. Graham's gaze stayed on me. What do you want right now, Helena? I blinked. The question was so simple it felt like a trap. What do I want? I echoed. Yes, he said, if you could ask for one thing. I thought of my rent, my bills, the little emergency savings I'd built by skipping dinners out and buying generic brands. I thought of being fired and having no reference. I thought of my visa paperwork, my employment status tied like a rope around my ankle. But what came out of my mouth surprised even me. Don't punish Alyssa and Noah, I said. Please. Whatever you think I did, whatever you do to me, don't let them lose their slot because of this. She's already barely holding on. The director frowned. Helena, you are not in a position to make demands. Graham's eyes narrowed slightly. That's what you ask for? Yes, I said, because they'll use this as an excuse to cut her. They'll say risk and reputation, and she'll be gone, and her son needs help. For the first time, the director hesitated, just a flicker. Graham leaned back. You're aware this could involve law enforcement, he said. I didn't do it, I said. And you're aware, he continued, that public perception matters in a clinic like this. I stayed silent. Graham watched me for a long moment, then reached into his bag. He pulled out a thick white envelope and placed it on the table between us. No name, no logo. Just white paper, heavy, clean. The director's eyes widened. What is that? I asked, but my voice already knew. Graham slid the envelope toward me, stopping it a few inches from my hands. An option, he said. The director leaned forward. Graham, we can't... He glanced at her, and she stopped mid-sentence like a leash had tightened. He turned back to me. Helena, he said, this clinic is about to explode. The donor groups are already talking. The board will want a clean resolution. I stared at the envelope like it was a live animal. Graham's voice stayed calm, almost kind. Option A, he said. You sign a statement admitting wrongdoing. You agree to resign quietly. You take this money and you disappear from this story. No public humiliation, no drawn-out investigation. You go home today and start over. My mouth went dry. How much? I whispered before I could stop myself, and shame flooded me instantly. Graham didn't judge the question. Enough, he said. Enough to make it tempting. Enough to make your life easier. My mind flashed with images. Paying off my credit card, sending money to my mother, sleeping without fear. Then he continued. Option B, he said. You refuse. You stay here for 24 hours under investigation, no access to systems, no contact with staff. You may be fired anyway. Your name may be dragged through the donor committee chats. And if you're wrong, if it turns out you did this, you will have no envelope, no protection. My hands curled into fists under the table. And if I'm right? I asked. Graham's gaze held mine. If you're right, he said, I will personally clear your name publicly. The director looked like she might choke. You can't promise that. Graham didn't look at her. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. 24 hours, in a place where rumors multiplied like bacteria, in a place where Cassandra had friends with time and influence. Option A meant survival, immediate, simple, quiet. Option B meant war without weapons. And yet, as I stared at that envelope, something in me hardened. Because if I took the money, I wasn't just signing away my job. I'd be signing away the truth. And Alyssa and Noah would still be in the blast zone. They would say, see, even Helena admitted it. And then they would tighten policies, cut risky patients, protect their image. People like Alyssa would be the first to go. I looked up at Graham. "If I sign," I said, "will you guarantee Alyssa and Noah stay?" The director scoffed. "This is not about them." "It is," I said, sharper than I'd ever spoken in that clinic. My voice filled the room like it belonged to someone else. "It is. Because you're going to use them to prove you're safe. You'll sacrifice them to look clean." Graham didn't interrupt. He waited. "If I sign," I continued, "you'll say the clinic handled it. You'll say you protected children, but you'll still be protecting the wrong people." I breathed in, slow. "I want option B," I said. The director's eyes widened. "Helena, don't be ridiculous." Graham's expression didn't change, but something in his posture shifted, subtle attention. "You refuse the money," he said. "Yes," I said. I pushed the envelope away, not touching it. I didn't want my fingerprints on it. I didn't want anyone to say I'd reached for it. Graham watched that movement with the focus of someone watching a test result appear. "I didn't do it," I said, and my voice steadied. "And I'm not signing a lie. Not if it destroys a mother and a child who already have no power." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Graham nodded once, almost imperceptibly. 24 hours, he said. The director exhaled, frustrated. "Fine," she snapped. "Then you understand. You are suspended pending investigation, and you are not allowed to contact anyone in this building." "I understand," I said. Graham picked up the envelope and slipped it back into his bag without opening it. Then, as he stood, he said something that made my skin prickle. "Helena," he said, "I need you to do something very difficult." "What?" I asked. "Don't defend yourself publicly," he said. The director blinked. "Excuse me?" Graham looked at her like she wasn't the one he was speaking to. "If you start arguing in the clinic chat groups, people will pick sides," he said, "and whoever framed you will adjust. They'll delete, rewrite, cover tracks." I stared at him. "You want me to stay quiet?" I said. "For 24 hours, he confirmed. "Let the story run. Let people show who they are. Let the timeline reveal itself." My throat tightened. The instinct to scream was primal. The instinct to text every coworker and say, "This isn't me," felt like survival. But he was right. If someone had made a file with my voice, they'd also made a plan. And plans fall apart when the target stops reacting the way you expect. "Okay," I said, and it came out like a promise. The director looked at me like I was insane. Graham opened the door, then paused. "One more thing," he said to me. I met his eyes. "If you are innocent," he said, "don't touch what's not yours. Not even when you're desperate." I swallowed. He left. The director followed, her jaw tight. The door closed again. I was alone. Except I wasn't. A few minutes later, the door opened quietly, and Ray stepped inside. He moved like a person who didn't want to be noticed even by walls. He carried a small paper cup of water and set it on the table without a word. Then he sat not across from me like an authority, but beside the door, like a guard dog that had decided I was on the right side of the house. "You okay?" he asked softly. I let out a laugh that sounded like it belonged to someone else. "No," I said. "I'm not." Ray nodded as if that was the only honest answer. "I heard," he said, "about the audio." "It's my voice," I whispered. "It's exactly my voice." Ray's jaw tightened. "Yeah," he said, "that's the point." I stared at him. "You believe me?" He didn't answer immediately. He looked at me like he was reading a screen. "I've worked in systems long enough to know two things," he said. "One, people will believe whatever makes their life easier. Two, audio files don't appear out of nowhere." I felt my eyes sting. I blinked hard. I refused to cry in that room, on that cheap chair, under that fluorescent light. Ray leaned forward slightly. "Listen," he said, "you've got 24 hours? That's a lifetime in a place like this. If someone framed you, they already planted the story. What you need now is not a speech. You need a timeline." "A timeline," I repeated. Ray nodded. "Who got it first? Where it came from? What device it was forwarded from? Who had access to the raw bits?" "I don't have access," I said, hopeless creeping into my voice. "They took my badge, my phone." Ray's mouth twisted into something close to a smile. "Yeah," he said, "but they didn't take my keys." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small key ring, jangling softly. "I'm not saying we hack anything," he added quickly. "This place has cameras, logs, forwarding trails. A lot of it is stupidly easy to trace if you know where to look, and people who think they're smart make sloppy mistakes." My heart lifted a fraction. Not hope yet, but something like it. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. Ray looked away for a second, like the answer embarrassed him. "Because you're the only one in this building who says, 'Good morning' to me," he said. "And because I've seen Cassandra treat people like trash since the day she started showing up here." At the mention of Cassandra, my spine straightened. "She's behind it," I said, and it wasn't even a question anymore. It was a feeling, an imprint. Ray's eyebrows rose. "You got proof?" "Not yet," I admitted. "But—" "She was too ready, too perfect." Ray nodded slowly. "Then we collect what we can." I leaned forward. "How?" Ray tapped the table twice with his finger, like he was counting steps. "1," he said. "We figure out where the leak started. A donor committee WhatsApp group, a staff group, a board chat. Those forwards have patterns." "WhatsApp shows forwarded labels," I said, thinking out loud, my brain finally working again. "And timestamps." "Exactly," Ray said. 2, we look at the audio itself. Cuts, background noise, repeated breaths. Those can show splicing. I thought of what I'd heard, the repeated inhale before burn. 3, Ray continued, we look at physical access. Who was in the records room? Who was near the phone lines? Who had the kind of recordings you'd need to train a voice clone? My stomach turned. "They record calls," I said. Ray nodded. "Some calls, some voicemails. And you leave voice messages for patients all the time." I pictured myself leaving reminders. "Hi, this is Helena from the clinic, just confirming your appointment." So many little pieces of me, stored like scraps. Ray's eyes stayed on mine. "You said you noticed something off," he said, "not just the breaths." I hesitated. "Yes," I said, "but I need to be sure." Ray waited. I lowered my voice even though the room was empty. "There's a language clue," I said. "Portuguese." Ray blinked. "Portuguese?" I nodded. "I'm Brazilian. I hear things other people don't." Ray leaned closer, interest sharpening. "Tell me." I swallowed. "Before they came to take my badge," I said, "Cassandra leaned toward the director. I saw her mouth something. And earlier, I heard her on the phone once. She thought no one understood. She was trying to speak Portuguese, but it was wrong." Ray's eyes narrowed. "Like Google Translate wrong?" "Like memorized," I said. "Like someone practicing a line without knowing how it lives in a real sentence." Ray leaned back. "And you think she used Portuguese in the deep-fake planning?" "I don't know yet," I said. "But I have this feeling that someone tried to imitate me, not just my voice, but my way of switching languages, and they got it wrong." Ray nodded slowly. "That's good," he said. "That's something only you can catch." My chest tightened again as reality returned. "But what if it doesn't matter?" I whispered. "What if they don't care about proof? They already decided." Ray's face hardened. "That's why we need something undeniable," he said. "Not feelings, not character, data, a chain, a timeline. My stomach clenched at the word chain. Somewhere in the building, Alyssa was probably being told her son's treatment slot might be reassessed. Somewhere, Noah was crying because adults were fighting, and he didn't know why. And somewhere, Cassandra was probably already crafting her next performance. My hands trembled under the table. Ray stood, moving toward the door. "I can't stay long," he said. "They'll wonder why I'm here." "Ray," I said quickly, "please, if you find something, don't tell anyone." "Not yet." He looked at me. "Why?" "Because if Cassandra realizes we're looking, she'll erase, she'll rewrite, she'll move. Because Graham told me to stay quiet and let the story reveal itself." I took a breath. "Because if we move too fast," I said, "we warn the person who did it." Ray nodded once. "Okay," he said, "then we do it clean." He opened the door, then paused. "One more thing," he said. "What?" I asked. Ray's voice softened. "Whatever happens," he said, "don't break in front of them. Not because you owe them strength, but because people like Cassandra feed on that." I stared at him. He left. The door closed. I sat alone again. But my mind wasn't empty anymore. It was full of steps, a timeline, a chain. 24 hours. I didn't know yet that those 24 hours would feel like an entire lifetime. And I didn't know yet that the first clue would come not from a computer, not from a log, not from a file, but from a single phrase in broken Portuguese, spoken too confidently by someone who thought no one would understand. They didn't let me out of Conference B. They didn't need to. The room itself was enough of a cage. Every few hours, someone would open the door just long enough to remind me I was being watched. A bottle of water, a bland granola bar, a clipboard with a form I refused to sign. And always, always that look, not curiosity anymore, not even anger. That look people get when they're relieved it's not them. I tried to breathe slow, the way my mother taught me when I was a kid, and I'd get scared during thunderstorms. Count 4 in, hold, count 4 out. But my body didn't believe the storm was outside. My body thought it was me. The worst part was the quiet. No phone, no messages, no chance to correct anything. I could imagine the group chats multiplying without me. I could see the donor committee's shocked emojis, and the "how could she?" and the "we trusted her." I could picture co-workers I'd covered shifts for typing. I always felt something was off, because that's how it goes. People rewrite their memory to match the accusation. I pressed my fingertips to the edge of the table, holding myself in place. Option A would have ended this. A signature, a paycheck, a quiet exit. I didn't take it, and I kept reminding myself why. Because Alyssa and Noah were still out there. If the lie won, the machine would roll right over them next. Sometime after noon, the director came in with 2 other administrators. One of them was from HR. The other one I didn't know. Both looked like they'd practiced their serious faces in a mirror. They asked questions in circles. Where was I last night? Had I ever shared my login? Had I ever taken patient information home? Had I ever felt resentment toward the clinic? Resentment. That word made my jaw ache. They wanted a motive so they wouldn't have to consider the possibility that someone powerful had staged this. They wanted my story to fit in a neat box labeled "Employee Gone Bad." I answered in simple sentences. I didn't argue, I didn't cry. I could see their frustration growing because they wanted drama. Drama made the accusation feel true. When they left, I stared at the door and listened to their footsteps fade. Then right when my throat started to burn from holding back everything, I heard a different set of footsteps. Slow, quiet, familiar. The door opened just a crack, and Ray slipped in like a shadow. He didn't sit this time. He stood near the wall, quick and alert. "You've got about 5 minutes," he murmured. "They're busy prepping for tonight." "Tonight?" I asked. He nodded. "The pediatric fundraiser. They didn't cancel. Cassandra pushed hard to keep it. Of course she did. The event was the clinic's favorite mirror. A fancy room, a stage, donor applause, speeches about compassion, photos for social media, a shining surface to cover anything ugly underneath. "They're holding it anyway," I whispered. "Yeah," Ray said, "and your little scandal is fuel." My stomach turned. Ray pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and slid it onto the table. Handwritten notes. Not technical codes, just clear words. First send, 8:12 a.m., committee WhatsApp, Cassandra admin. Second, 8:14 a.m., staff group, front desk plus admin, sent by Lila. Third, 8:17 a.m., pediatric donors subgroup, sent by Cassandra. I stared at the notes. "Cassandra is admin?" I asked. Ray nodded. "She set up half those groups. People think it's community. It's control." My heart pounded. "So she was the first?" I asked, voice tight. "She wasn't just the first," Ray said. "She was the source." My mouth went dry. That's proof," I whispered. "It's a start," Ray corrected. "Not enough by itself. She can say someone forwarded it to her. But here's what matters." He tapped the paper. "The file didn't come in as a forwarded audio," he said. "It came in as an upload, fresh, like it was on her phone already." I gripped the edge of the table. "How do you know?" I asked. "Because WhatsApp labels forwards," he said simply. "And because I got a screenshot from someone who still trusts you. Someone still trusts you." That sentence hit me like warmth in the middle of a blizzard. I blinked hard. "Who?" I asked. Ray shook his head. "Doesn't matter, not now. Keep them safe." I nodded. Ray pulled out his own phone, old model, cracked screen, and held it close enough for me to see, but not touch. He played a few seconds of the audio. My voice filled the room again. "I leaked everything." I flinched. Ray paused it. "Listen to the background," he said. I listened. The faint hum, too clean. No room noise, no lobby echo, no real world. "It sounds like it's in a studio," I whispered. "Exactly," Ray said. "Now listen to this." He swiped and played a different clip. My voice again, but this time it was real. One of the appointment reminder voicemails I'd left, recorded through the clinic system. "Hi, this is Helena calling from..." My chest tightened. Ray paused. "Hear the difference?" he asked. The real one had air. It had the tiny imperfections of a phone line. The fake one sounded polished, like someone had scrubbed it. "They edited it," I whispered. Ray nodded. "Spliced together. They took bits of you from different calls. Stitched it." I closed my eyes. A wave of nausea rose and fell. "Why?" I asked, and my voice broke. "Why me?" Ray's face hardened. "Because you're easy to sacrifice," he said. "You're not a doctor. You're not a donor. You don't have a spouse who throws galas." He wasn't wrong. I swallowed and forced myself back into the moment. "What else?" I asked. Ray inhaled, then lowered his voice even more. "I checked the records room access log," he said. "Not breaking in, just looking at what the system already tracks." My pulse jumped. "And?" "Someone used an admin badge last night after hours," he said. "The records room, then the call archive terminal. The call archive terminal was in a small office near records. It stored voicemail logs and internal audio. It was where you could get the raw scraps of my voice." "Who?" I asked, already knowing the answer wouldn't be simple. Ray shook his head. "Badge belonged to one of the senior administrators," he said. "But that doesn't mean they used it. People leave badges in drawers. People share codes." I thought of Cassandra's influence, the way she could walk into any room and people would step aside like she had a right. "She could have taken it," I whispered. Ray nodded. "Or convinced someone to let her." My fists tightened. "And the Portuguese thing?" Ray asked. "You said there was a clue." I exhaled slowly. "I need to hear her," I said. "I need one clean moment where she thinks no one understands." Ray's gaze flicked to the ceiling. "They're rehearsing speeches for tonight," he said. "Cassandra's been on the phone all day." My heart beat faster. Ray leaned in. "I can get you near her," he said. "Not close, just close enough to hear." "But they locked me in here," I said. Ray's expression went flat, practical. "Tonight, they'll move you," he said. "They'll want you on site. They'll want you available for questions. And Graham, he'll be at the fundraiser." The name hit like a bell. "Graham," I whispered. "Why does he care?" Ray's eyes narrowed slightly. "You don't know who he is, do you?" I stared at him. Ray exhaled. "I'm not sure I'm supposed to tell you," he said. "But he's not just some consultant." My heart thudded. Ray looked at the door, then back at me. "Tonight," he said, "you keep doing what you're doing. Stay quiet. Let them underestimate you. And when you get your moment, listen." He folded the paper again and tucked it back into his pocket. "Ray," I said quickly, "if this goes wrong—" "It won't," he said, but his voice carried the weight of someone who knew it might. He opened the door and slipped out. The door clicked shut. I sat alone with my thoughts racing like feet down a hallway. Cassandra was the source. The file was an upload, not a forward. The audio sounded scrubbed, stitched, unnatural. It was something, but I needed the kind of proof that could survive a public room full of rich people and rehearsed tears. And I needed to protect Alyssa and Noah before Cassandra used them as a shield. Late afternoon, the director returned. "We're moving you," she said, clipped. "You'll be in the admin office during the event." "The fundraiser?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "We need you available in case things escalate." Things escalate, like my name wasn't already on fire. 2 guards escorted me through the clinic again. The hallway photos of smiling kids watched me like witnesses. As we passed the lobby, I saw Alyssa. She was standing near the coffee bar, clutching a folder so hard her knuckles were white. Noah sat on a bench beside her, legs swinging, face blotchy from crying. Alyssa's eyes found mine instantly. The look she gave me wasn't hatred anymore, it was fear. The director saw my glance and stepped between us like a gate. "Alyssa," she said with forced sweetness, "we're still reviewing your case. We'll update you after the event." Alyssa swallowed. "My case?" she asked, voice shaking. "My son's therapy isn't a case, it's his life." The director's smile tightened. "We have to ensure patient safety," she said, loud enough for nearby donors' wives to hear. "You understand?" Alyssa's eyes flashed. "Safety," she repeated, "or reputation?" The director's face hardened. "Don't make this harder," she warned. Noah looked up at his mother, confused. Then his gaze slid toward me. He stared at me with a seriousness that didn't belong to 6-year-old eyes. Then he said, in a small voice that somehow cut through everything, "She said it." The hallway went silent around us, like sound had been sucked out. My chest seized. Alyssa turned to him, panicked. "Noah!" Noah pointed at me, his little finger steady. "She said it," he repeated. "She said the words." The director's eyes widened like she'd been handed a gift. Cassandra wasn't there, but I could almost feel her smile. The director turned to the nearest staff member. "You heard that?" she said quickly. "The child recognizes her voice." My vision blurred. Noah's gaze stayed locked on me, not angry, just certain. I forced my breath to stay steady. "Noah," I said softly, because my instinct was still to protect him, even now. "Sweetheart, what did you hear?" The director snapped. "Do not speak to him." Alyssa's eyes filled with tears. "Noah, what do you mean?" she asked, voice trembling. Noah's bottom lip quivered. "The message," he said, "the one she sent." My heart stumbled. "The message?" I whispered. Alyssa blinked. "What message?" Noah's voice rose, frantic now. "The nice one," he said. "The one that said it was okay. The one where she said, 'Don't worry.'" My brain clicked. He wasn't talking about the leaked confession. He was talking about me. A week ago, Alyssa had been spiraling because her insurance was stalling. She'd left a voicemail late at night, voice shaking, saying she didn't know what to do. I'd listened the next morning before my shift started. I'd heard the panic, the exhaustion. I'd called her back before the clinic opened and left her a voice message, soft and careful. "Hi, Alyssa. It's Helena from the clinic. I got your message. Don't worry, okay? We're going to figure it out. You're not alone." I remembered exactly what I'd said because I'd meant it. Noah had probably heard it on speakerphone. Kids hear everything. He recognized my voice because it had comforted him. But now, in this hallway, it sounded like he was confirming my guilt. The director seized the moment. "You see," she said sharply, turning to Alyssa and the surrounding onlookers, "even the child recognizes it." Alyssa's face twisted in confusion. She looked between her son and me. My throat burned. If I defended myself now out loud in front of staff and donors, Cassandra would know we were closing in. She would scramble. This was the exact moment my survival instinct screamed at me to fight back. I swallowed it. I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I stayed quiet. Alyssa's eyes pleaded with me. "Helena," she whispered, Is it you?" My heart cracked. I looked at her and did something that felt like betrayal, but was really a promise. I shook my head slowly. No words, no drama, just no. Alyssa stared, tears spilling. Noah started crying again, confused by the adult's tension. The guards moved me forward, pushing me along. As we walked away, I heard Alyssa say, almost to herself, "That's not her. That's not the voice that helped us." The director didn't respond, but I heard her heels speed up. They put me in the admin office near the back of the clinic, close to the service hallway. From there, I could hear the fundraiser preparations through the walls. Music checks, staff murmuring, the clink of glassware. Every sound made my skin crawl. A few hours later, the event started. I couldn't see the stage, but I could feel the energy shift. Laughter. Applause, that bright artificial joy that rich people wear like jewelry. At some point, the director came in and sat across from me with a folder. "We've decided," she said. My stomach dropped. "We're preparing termination paperwork," she continued, voice flat. "Given the severity, we have to act." I stared at her. "You don't have proof," I said quietly. She tapped the folder. "We have the audio," she said. "We have a child statement. We have donor concern." "That's not proof," I repeated. Her eyes flashed. "Proof is what the board accepts," she said. "And right now, they accept this." I felt cold. "You're doing this because it's easier," I said, and my voice shook despite my effort. "Because it protects the people you want to protect." The director's jaw tightened. "You don't understand how this world works," she hissed. I looked at her. "I understand exactly," I said. She stood abruptly. "Stay here," she ordered. "Do not leave this room." She left. Minutes later, the door opened again. This time it was Cassandra. She glided in like she owned the hallway, the clinic, the air. Her eyes were red, but I knew now how she manufactured that look. She could cry on command. She could shape any emotion into an accessory. She closed the door behind her and leaned lightly against it. For the first time all day, her face dropped the performance. "Well," she said softly, "look at you." My hands clenched under the table. "What do you want?" I asked, voice steady. Cassandra tilted her head. "I want to understand," she said, "why you're making this so difficult." "I'm not," I said. "You are." Her lips curved. "Still pretending," she murmured. I stared at her. "I didn't do it," I said. Cassandra sighed like I was exhausting her. "You have no idea how fragile trust is," she said. "One rumor and donors pull out. Programs collapse, children lose care." I almost laughed. "You're saying this is about children?" I asked. Her eyes sharpened. "It's about the clinic," she corrected. "And the clinic is bigger than you." My chest burned. "And Alyssa?" I asked quietly. "And Noah?" Cassandra's expression flickered. Disgust, maybe, or irritation. "Alyssa is messy," she said. "She attracts attention. People like her turn into symbols, and symbols are dangerous." There it was, not safety, not ethics, control. I leaned forward. "You're afraid people will sympathize with her," I said. Cassandra's eyes narrowed. "I'm afraid she will damage what we've built," she snapped. Then her voice softened again, as if she remembered she preferred silk to knives. "I heard you refused the envelope," she said. My stomach tightened. "So you know about that," I said. Cassandra smiled faintly. "Everything in this building comes back to me," she said. I held her gaze. She walked closer, lowering her voice like she was offering mercy. "Take the deal," she said. "Sign. Leave. You'll be fine. You're young. You'll find another job. Maybe somewhere. Less demanding." "Less demanding," I repeated. She shrugged lightly. "Somewhere you belong." The words were quiet, but they landed like a shove. I felt my face heat, but I didn't let it show. "I belong wherever I work honestly," I said. Cassandra's smile disappeared. Then she turned slightly, pulling her phone out. "I don't have time for this," she said, and her fingers moved quickly across the screen. "I have a speech." She lifted the phone to her ear and walked toward the corner as if I wasn't there, and then, like a gift from the universe, she spoke. Not in English, in Portuguese. Slow, careful Portuguese, the kind you speak when you learned a sentence phonetically and you're terrified of messing it up. "Você faz a voz dela dizer," she said, stumbling over the rhythm. "Diz que ela vazou tudo que ela quer destruir." My heart froze. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. She kept going, her tone sharp now, impatient. Não assim, ela fala diferente, faz igual. O jeito brasileiro, entendeu? A respiração repete. My skin prickled. She was describing it. She was describing the fake. Then she said the phrase that snapped everything into place. "Faz a voz dela dizer, deixa queimar," she said, and she pronounced it wrong. Not like a foreigner trying their best. Like someone who didn't understand what the phrase meant, only that it sounded dramatic. And worse, she used deixa in a way no Brazilian would in that sentence. It was the kind of mistake you make when you translate word by word in your head. It was a tiny crack. But in a deepfake world, tiny cracks are everything. Cassandra paused, listening. Then she said, annoyed, "Não me importa. Faz logo e apaga as evidências." Erase the evidence. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. I wanted to jump up. I wanted to scream, "I heard you!" But I didn't. I stared at the wall, forcing my face into blankness, because if she saw anything in my eyes, she'd know. Cassandra ended the call and turned back to me, slipping her mask on like a glove. Her smile returned. "See," she said, "this is what happens when you think you matter." Then she walked out. The door clicked shut. For a full minute I didn't move. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might bruise my ribs. She'd said it. She'd admitted it in her own careless way, in the language she thought was safe. Now I needed Ray. I needed Graham. I needed a way to take that fragile crack and turn it into something the entire room could see. The door opened again. Ray slipped in, eyes urgent. "You heard?" he whispered. I stared at him. "You were outside?" I asked. He nodded. "I was checking cameras. I heard Portuguese. I caught some on my phone." My lungs filled with air like I'd been underwater. "You recorded," I whispered. Ray held up his phone slightly. "Not perfect," he said, "but enough, her voice, her words, her accent." I felt dizzy. "She said, apagar as evidências," I breathed. Ray's jaw clenched. Yeah, he said, and she said, Faz a voz de la dizer. I gripped the table. That's it, I whispered. Ray leaned in. Now we need the stage, he said. The stage, I repeated. Ray nodded. Public room, he said. She can't bully her way out if everyone sees the chain. My stomach twisted. They won't let me in, I said. Ray's eyes flicked toward the hallway. They don't have to invite you, he said. Graham will. The name again, heavy. Ray lowered his voice. Helena, he said, before we go any further, you need to know something. I stared at him. Ray hesitated, then spoke. Graham isn't here to save the clinic, he said. He's here to judge it. My breath caught. He's the donor, I whispered. Ray nodded. Biggest one, he said. Or he could be. He owns stakes in the group. He funds programs. He has people watching. He calls it character testing. Character testing. The envelope. The deal. My stomach dropped and then steadied. So the test wasn't just about me, it was about everyone. Ray moved toward the door. Come on, he said. We have a short window. They're about to do Cassandra's speech. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else, but I stood. Ray led me through the service hallway, away from the main flow. He moved like he knew every blind spot, every camera angle. We reached a side door that opened into the back of the fundraiser hall. The room was beautiful in that expensive, staged way. White linens, soft lighting, glass centerpieces, photos of smiling children projected on a screen. Donors in suits and dresses sat at round tables, laughing and clinking glasses like nothing could touch them. My stomach churned with anger. They were eating while Alyssa was probably wondering if her son's future was being erased. Cassandra was on stage now, holding a microphone with both hands, like she was praying. Her voice carried across the room, sweet and trembling. We are here tonight, she said, because children deserve safety, dignity, and care. Applause. She continued, painting herself as a protector, the clinic as a sanctuary, the donors as heroes. Every word felt like a smear. I stood behind a partition near the back, hidden enough not to cause a scene yet. Ray hovered close, phone in hand. My heart pounded. Then Cassandra's gaze swept the room and landed on Alyssa. Alyssa was seated near the side, holding Noah on her lap, even though he was too big for it. Her face looked pale, tight, like she hadn't eaten. Cassandra smiled at her like a saint smiles at someone beneath them. And we must also remember, Cassandra said, voice thick with emotion, that trust is fragile. It only takes one person to endanger everything we've built. Heads turned, murmurs. She was going to use me. She was going to use Alyssa. She was going to make herself the hero of a story she manufactured. My chest burned. Ray leaned close. Wait, he whispered. Graham's here. I scanned the room. I spotted him near the front, standing, not seated, hands clasped behind his back, calm, watching. He didn't look like a man enjoying a fundraiser. He looked like a man watching a trial. Cassandra's voice rose. We had an incident, she said. A breach that threatened patient privacy. A betrayal. Gasps, murmurs. She had them. And as painful as it is, Cassandra continued, we must be brave enough to remove those who harm children, even when they smile at the front desk. My stomach dropped. She was about to say my name. Ray's hand touched my elbow. Now, he whispered. Before I could move, Graham stepped forward. He didn't rush the stage. He didn't force. He simply walked, steady, up the aisle like he belonged there. He took the steps onto the stage without asking. Cassandra faltered mid-sentence, surprised. A staff member moved as if to stop him, then hesitated, like something about Graham's presence made them unsure. Graham took the microphone gently from Cassandra's hands, like he was taking a fragile object. Cassandra's smile froze. Good evening, Graham said, and his voice was calm, but carried power without volume. "I'm Graham." A ripple moved through the room. Some faces brightened, recognizing him. Whispers spread like wind. "Oh my God. It's him. Is that—" Cassandra's face tightened. "Graham," she said, forcing warmth. "What a wonderful surprise." He didn't look at her. He looked out at the audience. "I was invited tonight," he said, "as a potential donor." People straightened. Donors loved being near other donors. "But I'm not interested in donating to buildings," he continued, "or branding, or speeches." Cassandra's eyes narrowed. Graham's voice stayed even. "I'm interested in character," he said. The word landed like a weight. Silence spread. Graham turned slightly, glancing toward the back of the room. And then, like he had been waiting for this exact beat, he said, "Helena." My breath caught. Heads turned. Every face swung toward me like sunlight toward a mirror. For a split second, I wanted to disappear. My knees threatened to collapse. Then I remembered Alyssa, Noah, the envelope. I stepped out from behind the partition. A wave of murmurs rolled through the crowd. "There she is. That's her." Graham lifted a hand slightly, and the murmurs quieted as if by magic. "Helena has been accused," Graham said, "based on a highly convincing piece of digital media." Cassandra's mouth opened. "Graham, this isn't—" He held up a finger, not rude, just final. "I asked for a full timeline," Graham said. "Not opinions, not feelings, a timeline." He nodded toward the tech booth. A screen behind him changed. A simple timeline appeared. Times, group names, arrows, the first upload timestamp, the first share, the second, the third. Ray must have gotten it to someone on the inside, or Graham already had access. Cassandra's face drained of color. Graham pointed to the first entry. "This file first appeared," he said, "in the donor committee WhatsApp group at 8:12 a.m., uploaded from an admin account." A murmur. Graham's finger moved. "It was then shared into the staff group at 8:14 a.m. by a staff member who received it from that committee group," he said, "not the other way around." The room buzzed. Cassandra's voice shook. "That proves nothing," she said. "Anyone could have sent it to the committee." Graham nodded, as if acknowledging the argument. "That's true," he said. "So we looked deeper." He gestured again. The screen changed to a close-up of the audio waveform. Not technical, just visual. "You see these," he said, pointing to identical shapes repeated, breathing patterns repeated in the same spot. "That doesn't happen in a natural recording." People leaned forward. "And here," he continued, "you see the background noise." He tapped. "It's scrubbed, too clean. Like a patchwork." Cassandra's lips pressed tight. Graham's voice remained calm. "In other words," he said, "this was assembled." The room went very still. Graham looked out at the audience. "You've all heard of synthetic media," he said. "Deepfakes, voice cloning. Most people think it's something that happens to celebrities, something you laugh at online." He paused. "But it happens here," he said, "to the people with the least power, to the people easiest to blame." My throat burned. I felt Alyssa's gaze on me like a hand. Graham turned back toward Cassandra for the first time. "And now," he said, "we need motive." Cassandra's smile was gone. Her eyes flashed. "There is no motive," she snapped. "This employee—" Graham cut in gently. "Not hers," he said. "Yours." A collective inhale. Cassandra's body stiffened. Graham nodded toward the side of the room. "Alyssa," he said. Alyssa flinched, startled. Her arms tightened around Noah. Graham's voice softened slightly. "Alyssa submitted a complaint," he said, "about irregular charges and donor-related pressure." Murmurs exploded. Cassandra stepped forward, furious. "That's confidential." Graham's gaze didn't move. So was the patient data you accused Helena of leaking, he said. Cassandra froze. My heart pounded. Graham continued, Alyssa also indicated she had been encouraged to stay quiet for the good of the program. Alyssa's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded once, small and brave. Noah buried his face in her shoulder. Graham looked back to the audience. Tonight, he said, you were about to watch a woman be sacrificed publicly to protect image. The room shifted. People looked uncomfortable. Donors didn't like feeling complicit. Graham lifted his hand. And this isn't speculation, he said, because we have one more piece. My stomach clenched. Ray's recording. Graham glanced toward me, and for a second his eyes held mine like a quiet question. This is the point where fear could win. My hands trembled, and I realized something. This wasn't just Cassandra on trial, it was me. If I froze, Cassandra would walk away, Alyssa would be crushed, Noah would learn that the world rewards the loudest liar. I swallowed, stepped forward, and raised my voice just enough to carry. Before you play it, I said, and my voice shook. I need to ask everyone something. Heads turned back to me. If you're watching this right now, I continued, forcing my breath steady, and you've ever forwarded something because it felt true, please listen to what happens when you don't ask for proof. A few people blinked, surprised by the directness. I didn't get a chance to defend myself, I said, but someone got a chance to destroy me in one click. I paused. So if you believe in protecting children, I said, protect them with truth, not rumors. I looked at Graham and nodded. This was my CTA, but not like an ad, like a request for decency. Please, I added, don't share accusations without evidence. Not online, not in your group chats, not anywhere. Then I stepped back. Graham nodded once. He gestured to the tech booth. A short audio clip played through the speakers. Cassandra's voice, slightly muffled but clear enough. Faz a voz dela dizer, she said, stumbling. Diz que ela vazou tudo. A wave of shock moved through the room like electricity. Cassandra's face went white. The clip continued. Apaga as evidencias, her voice said. Silence hit so hard it felt physical. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Cassandra lunged toward the tech booth, frantic. Turn it off, she hissed. Two staff members stepped back, startled. One donor actually recoiled. Graham's voice cut through, calm and sharp. Cassandra, he said, stop. She froze mid-step, eyes wild. I stepped forward because I couldn't help it anymore. She tried to speak Portuguese, I said, voice trembling but clear, because she thought no one would understand. But I did. I looked at the audience. And she said it wrong, I added, because the detail mattered. She used a phrase the way someone does when they're copying a language, not living it. Cassandra spun toward me, rage burning through her mask. You little... she started. Graham's voice snapped like a door closing. That's enough, he said. Cassandra's breath came fast. Her eyes darted around, looking for allies, and for the first time, the room didn't give her what she wanted. People looked away from her. People stared at their laps. People shifted uncomfortably, like they suddenly remembered every time they'd laughed politely at her cruel jokes. The power changed hands, without anyone touching. Alyssa stood slowly, Noah clinging to her. Her voice was quiet, but it carried because the room had gone so still. My son needs help, Alyssa said, and you tried to take it away to protect yourself. Cassandra's lips trembled. This is ridiculous, she whispered. I was protecting the clinic. Alyssa shook her head. You were protecting your image, she said. Noah peeked over Alyssa's shoulder, eyes red. He looked at me, then at Cassandra. Then he said, small and clear, Helena is nice. A few people's faces softened. Someone at a table wiped their eyes. I felt my throat tighten. Graham stepped forward again, taking control with the ease of someone who'd done this before. I need to be transparent, he said to the audience. I didn't come here just to donate. He paused. I came here to decide whether this clinic deserves to exist the way it does, he said. Murmurs rippled. Graham's gaze swept the room. I lost my sister, he said, and the words dropped the temperature. Years ago, not because medicine failed, because people failed, because institutions protected themselves instead of protecting patients. The room went silent again, deeper this time. That's why I fund pediatric care, he continued. But I don't fund it blindly. I test. I observe. I look for what people do when doing the right thing costs them. His eyes landed on me. Helena was offered money to disappear, he said. A clean confession, a quiet exit, and enough cash to make survival easy. A murmur of shock. She refused, Graham said. Not because she's fearless, but because she asked for one thing, that a mother and child not be punished. My eyes stung. I blinked hard. Graham turned toward Cassandra. And Cassandra, he said, voice controlled, used synthetic media to create a confession and weaponized donor fear. She also attempted to silence a patient who raised concerns. Cassandra's face crumpled for a fraction of a second, then hardened. This is a misunderstanding, she whispered. Graham's expression didn't change. It's not, he said. He looked at the director who stood near the stage with a face that looked like it was cracking. You allowed this, Graham said calmly. You wanted a fast scapegoat. You nearly sacrificed your own patients to calm donors. The director's mouth opened. No sound came out. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Graham's voice lowered, and somehow that made it more powerful. I am withdrawing any consideration of funding unless, he said, there is public accountability and immediate protection for the patient harmed by this. The director swallowed hard. What do you require? She managed. Graham didn't hesitate. A public apology to Helena, he said. A written letter clearing her name. Restored pay for any days missed. A position with stability. My chest tightened. And Alyssa and Noah, he continued. Guaranteed care. Treatment covered. No retaliation. An independent review of billing and donor influence. Alyssa's hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. The director nodded stiffly, like her body was moving without her pride. Yes, she whispered. Yes, of course. Graham's gaze returned to Cassandra. And Cassandra, he said, you will also apologize publicly. You will step down from any involvement in clinic communications, donor committees, or patient-facing events. Effective immediately. Cassandra's eyes widened like he'd slapped her. You can't? She started. Graham's voice stayed calm. I can, he said. And I will. Cassandra's body trembled. She looked around again, desperate for support. This time, her own circle didn't move. Even the donors who'd been closest to her looked down, suddenly busy with their napkins. Her power had always depended on being untouchable. Now she was just a woman who'd been caught. Cassandra's chin lifted, a last attempt at dignity. Then slowly, she turned toward me. Her voice shook, but she forced the words out like swallowing something bitter. I apologize, she said, for what happened. It sounded like a sentence she hated. Graham didn't react. Again, he said. Cassandra flinched. She swallowed, eyes glossy with rage and humiliation. I apologize, she repeated louder, for falsely accusing Helena, for causing harm, for putting patients at risk. My chest tightened, the irony of her saying patients at risk when she'd used that phrase to destroy me. But this time, the room heard it differently. The director stepped forward, voice trembling. Helena, she said, looking at me like she was seeing me for the first time, we are deeply sorry. We failed you. She turned to the crowd. This clinic will implement immediate verification protocols for any digital evidence, she said. No staff member will be accused publicly without a verified investigation. We will also establish protections so vulnerable patients are not punished for administrative scandals. The words sounded rehearsed, but they were at least said. Graham nodded once, as if checking items off a list. He turned to the audience. "This is what accountability looks like," he said. "Not another speech, not another gala, a public correction when you're wrong." He paused. "And if you're watching this later," he added, voice steady, "remember how fast a lie moved tonight, and remember how hard the truth had to fight to catch up. If you care about kids, don't let your clicks become weapons." Another CTA placed before the final emotional landing, and it fit. Then he handed the microphone back, not to Cassandra, but to the director. Graham stepped off the stage and walked toward me. Up close, he didn't look triumphant. He looked tired. "Helena," he said quietly. My throat tightened. "Thank you," I whispered. He shook his head slightly. "Don't thank me," he said. "You did the hard part." I swallowed. "Why?" I asked. "Why test people like this?" His gaze held mine. "Because institutions learn to protect themselves," he said, "and the only thing that forces change is exposure." I nodded slowly. Alyssa approached us, Noah still glued to her side. Her voice shook. "Helena," she said, "I'm sorry. I didn't know what to believe." I stepped toward her without thinking. "You don't owe me an apology," I said softly. "You were scared." Alyssa's eyes filled again. You really left that message," she whispered. I nodded. "I meant it," I said. Noah looked up at me, his face crumpled. "I thought you were in trouble," he said, and his voice cracked. "I wanted you to be okay." My heart broke cleanly. I crouched slightly so I wasn't towering over him. "I'm okay," I said gently. "And you're going to be okay too." Noah sniffed. "Are we still coming?" he asked. Alyssa swallowed, glancing at the director, who was now speaking with staff in a frantic cluster. Graham answered before anyone else could. "Yes," he said. "You're still coming. And it's covered." Alyssa's knees nearly buckled. She pressed a hand to her mouth and nodded, unable to speak. Noah clung tighter, and I watched a child's body relax in real time, like someone had finally loosened a knot. The fundraiser didn't end with laughter after that. It ended with a strange, heavy quiet. People filed out slowly, avoiding Cassandra's corner like it was contaminated. Cassandra left through a side door, head down, no entourage, no spotlight, just the sound of her heels fading into the hallway she once ruled. After the room cleared, the director came to me with paperwork, but this time her hands shook. "We're reinstating you immediately," she said. "Paid. And we want to offer you a new position." I stared at her, exhausted. "What position?" I asked. She glanced at Graham, then back at me. "Patient advocacy and front office integrity," she said, as if the words were new. "A role with authority to flag concerns without retaliation." Authority. The word felt unreal. I thought of how invisible I'd been behind that desk, how many times I'd been talked over, how many times people assumed I didn't understand because of my accent. Now they were offering me a chair at the table because they'd been forced to see what happened when they ignored the person who holds the details. Graham watched me quietly. I looked at the director. "I'll accept," I said, "but only if Alyssa and Noah's care is guaranteed in writing tonight." The director nodded quickly. "Yes," she said. "Tonight." Graham's mouth twitched slightly, like a brief shadow of approval. The event staff began cleaning up, folding chairs, gathering centerpieces, taking down banners with smiling children. I stood in the back hallway again, the same hallway where I'd been marched like a criminal hours earlier. Ray appeared near the service door, hands in his pockets, eyes cautious. When he caught my gaze, he nodded once. No celebration, just confirmation. I walked over to him. "You saved me," I whispered. Ray shrugged, uncomfortable. "Nah," he murmured. "You saved you. I just pulled a thread." I swallowed, emotion rising like a tide. "Thank you," I said anyway. Ray's eyes softened. "Go breathe," he said. "You earned that." Later, when the clinic finally quieted, the director asked me to come to her office. Graham was there too, standing near the window, looking out at the dark parking lot. The director handed me a formal letter, my name in bold, a clear statement. The accusation was false, the audio was manipulated, my record was clean. My knees went weak just reading it. "We'll circulate it to staff and donors," the director said, "and we'll send it to the committee group." I nodded, swallowing. Graham turned toward me. "Helena," he said, "I owe you something else." I looked at him. He reached into his bag and pulled out the white envelope again. He placed it on the desk between us. My stomach tightened. "I'm returning this," he said, "not as payment, as closure." I stared at it, then looked up. "I don't want it," I said. He nodded as if expecting that. "I know," he said, "but I need you to understand what it was." "A test," I whispered. "Yes," he said, "and you passed." The director looked confused, caught between gratitude and discomfort. Graham's gaze stayed on me. "I've seen people take that envelope and tell themselves it's survival," he said. "I've seen people sign lies and call it moving on." His voice softened slightly. "You didn't," he said, "even when you had every reason to." I swallowed hard. Graham slid the envelope a little closer, then stopped. "And one last thing," he said. "This isn't about trusting me. It's about trusting yourself." He paused. "So I'm going to leave this here," he said, "and walk out for 2 minutes. The door will be open. No one will watch you." My stomach dropped. He was still testing. Graham looked at me with steady calm. "If you're the person I think you are," he said quietly, "you won't touch it." Then he turned and walked out. The director stared at me, then at the envelope, like she couldn't believe this was happening. She stood abruptly. "I'll give you privacy," she muttered, and left too, clearly uncomfortable. The door remained open. The office was quiet. The envelope sat on the desk like a heartbeat. I could see it in my mind, opening, stacks of crisp bills, enough to erase stress, enough to give my mother comfort, enough to make my life softer. My fingers twitched once, not because I wanted to betray myself, because my body remembered what hunger feels like, not food hunger, the constant fear hunger of being one emergency away from falling. I stared at it, breathing slow. Then I thought of Noah's face when he said, "Helena is nice." I thought of Alyssa's shoulders dropping when she realized her son's care was safe. I thought of Cassandra's voice, cold and careless, saying, "Apaga as evidencias." And I thought of what it would mean if I took even one bill. Not legally, morally. It would turn my victory into something Cassandra could twist. It would make my truth negotiable. I stood, walked around the desk and pushed the envelope toward the edge nearest the door, away from me. Then I stepped back and folded my hands in front of my body like I was guarding something fragile. 2 minutes felt like an hour. When Graham returned, he paused at the doorway and looked at the envelope. Untouched. He didn't smile big. He didn't praise. He just nodded once, like a man closing a file. "Good," he said quietly. He walked in and picked up the envelope. "I'll use it where it belongs," he said, "for kids." I swallowed, relief and exhaustion washing over me. Graham turned to leave again, then paused. "Helena," he said, "this clinic doesn't need more marketing." He glanced back at the director's empty chair. "It needs people who protect the vulnerable when no one is watching," he said. Then he left. In the days that followed, the clinic felt different in ways that were hard to describe. Staff looked at me differently, some with shame, some with admiration, some with discomfort because they remembered what they'd said in the group chat. A few people apologized quietly in hallways. One nurse stopped me near the break room and whispered, "I forwarded it, I'm sorry. I didn't think." I didn't punish her. I just looked at her and said, "Next time, think." The clinic installed new policies, clear ones, verification steps, rules about how accusations were handled, training sessions about synthetic media, about not trusting proof just because it sounded real. They put signs in staff areas, verify before you amplify. It was simple, almost childish. But we needed simple because people love to hide behind complexity. Alyssa and Noah stayed. Their therapy appointments continued, and the first time Noah saw me at the desk again, he ran up and hugged my waist like I was part of his safety now. Alyssa cried when she saw the official letter clearing my name posted in the donor group chat because she said she'd never seen rich people admit they were wrong in public. That was the justice, really, not Cassandra losing her shine. But the public correction, the repair, the moment the machine had to bow, even slightly, to the people it usually crushed. A month later, I got a new badge. Not the old one that only opened doors if someone allowed it. A badge that let me walk into meetings, review complaints, advocate without begging. And on my first day in the new role, I stood behind the reception desk again for a moment. Not because it was my job, but because I wanted to remember. I watched the lobby fill with parents and kids, the same eucalyptus smell, the same expensive calm, but I saw it differently now, because I knew how fast calm could become a weapon. Ray walked by and nodded at me, subtle as always. I smiled back. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket, a message from Alyssa, a photo of Noah holding a small drawing, a stick figure with curly hair behind a big desk, and a smaller stick figure child with a smile. Above it, in messy letters, it said, "Helena safe." My eyes stung. I didn't cry in the lobby. I waited until I was alone in my small office, closed the door, and let myself breathe out everything I'd been holding. Before I left that day, I walked past the donor wall, names engraved in polished metal. For the first time, I didn't feel small under it, because I understood something now. Money could build a clinic, but character was what made it worth entering. And if you're hearing my story right now, I want you to remember one thing the next time your phone lights up with something too real. Deepfake or not, truth doesn't travel fastest. It travels bravest, so be brave. Pause, ask, verify. Because someone's life might be sitting on the other side of your screen, praying you don't hit forward.